Hello, my name is Barnaby Lane and I created Political Profile. Political Profile is a passion project and I want to explain a little about who I am, what led me to build it and what it's trying to do. I'm an economist and I've worked in the private sector throughout my career. I studied philosophy, politics and economics at university and then went on to do a master's in economics. But my deeper interest has always been the intersection between human behaviour and ideas. How do people come to hold the views they do? How those views hang together and how that shapes how they act. That interest goes back a long way. It first really took hold when I was a teenager and started reading Bertrand Russell, Freud, Jung, Marx, and Adam Smith. What drew me in was how they tried in very different ways to get beneath the surface of human belief and behaviour. That interest has stayed with me ever since. The question behind Political Profile is simple in one sense. How do people's views take shape beneath the surface? What assumptions are they based on? What is the deeper architecture of thought? I'm especially interested in how people form views when their assumptions are not explicit, which is true of most people most of the time. Few people walk around with a worked out theory of authority, legitimacy, culture, economics, or leadership in their heads. But that doesn't mean they're absent. It means they're there implicitly. That's the part that interests me most. The real issue is that people reason from different starting points. We care about different things and we weight the things we do care about differently. The usual ways of explaining disagreement, such as you don't understand, you prioritise your own interests, or you have the wrong values, make conversations emotionally complicated and they always miss the point. The types of leadership that we instinctively trust or mistrust are different. We have different ideas about where responsibility begins and ends. The standard left-right model is too crude for this, and even the more elaborate two-axis versions miss the point. They can tell you roughly where someone sits, but they do not tell you how your outlook is put together. Ordinary polling has the same weakness. If you ask people whether they prefer A or B, you may learn something, but you still do not know how important that issue is to them compared with everything else, and that matters enormously. Because here is the key point. People don't base their views on binary choices. They respond to deeper things. Do you trust someone who works carefully through rules and institutions, or someone who feels more directly authorized to act? Do you prefer someone who explains everything in moral terms, or someone who tries to embody their standards in a quieter way? Do you think responsibility is centered mainly on the nation and the people closest to home, or do you place more weight on wider obligations? These are the issues that shape who we trust, what we support, and how we interpret what leadership is supposed to be. My background in economics shaped the way I approached all this. Economics trains you to break things down and analyse them. You ask what the main parts are, what matters most, and how those parts relate to the overall structure. This is what led me to build Political Profile in the way I did. It tries to capture two things at once. First, it examines how you see government, whether your instinct is to see it more as a bottom-up enabler, as a top-down organiser, or some mixture of the two. If you see the main forces for good in society as individuals, families, communities and businesses, then you are more likely to see government as an enabler. That is what I call bottom-up. If you see the main forces for good as social programs, public enterprise and social justice, then you are more likely to see government as an organiser. That is what I call top-down. Most people are not purely one or the other, and the profile is designed to capture that. It also measures the priority you give to different dimensions. 7 to be precise. The management of money, the limits of freedom, culture, nationhood, the source of mandate, moral vision, and the relationship between the governing and the governed. Together, those 7 dimensions are designed to cover the full spread of what matters most to people. Bringing this all together gives a much richer picture. It gives you not just a rough label, but a deeper architecture of how you see politics, politicians, and governments. It gives you a structured description of how you think, and it makes possible something very powerful: comparison with real leaders. You can compare yourself with leaders from different countries and see who you are most similar to and who you are most different from. Political Profile does that. It tells you who you match most closely and explains why. It does not necessarily tell you who you agree with in every respect. It tells you who you think most similarly to. It can produce surprisingly revealing results. The leader whose way of thinking most closely matches your own may not be the one you expected. It may not even be one you especially like, but it can still tell you something important because it reveals a resemblance in the deeper structure of your outlook. I wanted to build something that took people's beliefs seriously enough to look beneath the surface. Something that tried to understand disagreement before dismissing it. Something that captures not just stated preferences, but priorities, assumptions, instincts, and the architecture behind them. So if that sounds interesting, take the profile and see what comes out. You may recognize yourself straight away, or you may find that it shows you something about your own outlook that you had sensed, but never quite put into words before. If that happens, good, because that is why I built Political Profile.